Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Church with a Bow. This week, we are currently waiting for my good friend who shall not be named to join the cast. Should be a good one. He's got a lot of insight on a lot of this alien stuff. He's the first person who introduced myself to the concept of aliens in which I could believe it might be true. He's got apparently a good bit on Machu Picchu he's trying to tell us about. And all around, I think he might be an interesting guest. One, because, oh, Robert Paulson, turn your camera on. What are you doing? And you're muted. I can't hear you.
What's up, dog?
Holla, holla. Turn your phone sideways.
Oh no, I'm not gonna be on this. You crazy? What's the point of Robert Paulson if I'm just
Put,
putting my face on there?
put a mask on or something. What are you talking about?
Oh, bro, do you know how deep my masks are?
You know, you had a whole box of masks in the
I
back of
know.
the car for
There's even one on the wall right there, but no,
well,
too
come on,
much.
big dog. What are we talking about? I need something to look at if you're not gonna be on
Oh
camera.
no, you could put a we'll put a silly little picture. No?
No, I need something to look at. Come on, turn the phone sideways and put something in front of it, even if it's a puppet.
Okay. Let's do that then.
Just for the algorithm purposes. But yeah, last week I had Jordan on, and as soon as we started, I remembered that Jordan was Palestinian. I brought that up. He was like, "Oh, yeah, that works." He's
Cool.
like, "Yeah, I mean half." And I was like, "Well, my first topic of conversation actually works perfect with that, since you are Palestinian. Let's talk
No,
about."
I saw you went straight into blood feuds. I was like, yeah, dude, my face is not gonna be on this one.
It was blood libel. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
turn the phone sideways, please. Look at that landscape. Yeah, that's the money.
Dude, the angle here
Yeah, I
is
want to say I'm kind of entirely in the blanket. Maybe if you flip the phone around so the camera's on the other side.
oh no, that's the move. That's the move. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Let me get something to prop this against though. So
And I had honestly, I didn't even know what blood libel was. I had to look it up live, like you've probably seen. And it turns out that it's like the process of like, I guess, non-Jews who want to get into good graces with the Jews will sacrifice a non-Jew to them.
yeah.
And that
Dude, and then Mormons have a similar thing for blood atonement, but
atonement.
yeah.
I've not
But
heard
bro, we're here to talk about some weird rocks. That's really
aliens. Yes, all of the above. I've got some topics too if we run out of stuff to talk about. Ooh, one that I want to get from everybody that I haven't yet, that I'll start with you, is before we get into any weird shit, what's your favorite place that you've ever been? Why? And why did you decide to go? Like, how did you come up with the idea of, all right, I'm gonna go there?
um Yosemite. I just like went with my family, but yeah, Yosemite's probably the dopest. Just it's sick, dude. Half Dome.
Yeah, I've never been to Yosemite, but I definitely got to go. I think I've driven by it.
Yeah, no, it's a spot you want to go. Like there's different like if you go in the wintertime versus in the summer, like wintertime it's hella snowy and cool, and then summertime all the snow melts and you get these like awesome waterfalls. And I remember being a kid and seeing someone was halfway up Half Dome and their tent was just like hanging off the side, and I was watching them take a shit at like, I don't know, 4,000 feet. It was just a
Dome?
wild thing to see.
Were they camping on the side of the rock?
No, yeah, Half Dome is like it's a rock that was like circular that got split in half by like a glacier or an earthquake or something. But imagine an egg just like split in half, and because it's a vertical surface, when people go up, like you can't climb that whole thing. It's like a 3 or 4 day climb, so you have to bring a tent and ropes so that you can sleep on the side of this cliff, like just hanging. Like it's wild.
Yeah,
People
no,
climb it.
I've seen like reels and videos of people doing the like camping on the side of the cliffs, but I always thought that was in like China or some shit,
No,
Switzerland.
Yosemite's like one of the most popular spots. Like I want to say there's even like a waiting list for passes to go up there. It's straight up like hikers Disneyland.
Huh.
Oh yeah, dude, and that's not that far from us in the Bay Area. It's
Yeah, no,
like,
in the Bay it's like 3 hours away, right?
right.
Wow. Okay. Well, Yosemite, I like that. But you had told me a few weeks ago that you have something interesting, an interesting theory or something to talk about on Machu Picchu.
Well, yeah, Machu Picchu is like the first little bit of it because I just think it's wildly interesting. Like the other thing I'm going to talk about is also related because it's the same thing. It's weird rocks. But if you
Sure.
don't know anything about Machu Picchu, I can give you a little brief summary.
Definitely. Pretend I have no idea anything about Machu Picchu. Can you move the phone down a little bit? Like
Yep.
ceiling. Perfect. All right, let's
Um,
pretend we know nothing about Machu Picchu besides that it's like a big rock city essentially on top of a mountain. Why is it?
right. No, yeah. It's Incan. I don't know. You always, me personally, always get them confused with the Mayans. But the big difference is just that like obviously different cultures, but Incans didn't have a written language, so we know way less about them than the Mayans.
They also
Uh,
have some pyramids and stuff too, though, right?
No, yeah. They have similar like building styles and some overlap of like geographic locations and some overlap of time, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Machu Picchu is like an Incan castle or citadel that they built on the top of this mountain. They like think it was for, I want to say it was like one of their emperors or like a king. But yeah, when they found it, this is the crazy part, was that it's like because it's so deep in the jungle, it was completely taken back by the jungle. Like when you see, a movie that takes place in New York 200 years after people die and like the jungle's taken back, like that is what happened in this giant castle. Like the jungle completely
Oh,
overtook
high
it.
up on that mountain. I wouldn't think that there'd be any vegetation to take over there.
No, it's super dense. That's one of the other crazy things is they built it in this place that is inherently difficult to live and especially to build things in. Like everything had to be terraced. Like they had to cut steps into the mountain to even have enough areas to like grow food and have
Right.
uh, like enough land to do shit. So so yeah, it's this city that I don't know. It's more interesting that it's in a jungle, but anywhere in the world that you would see some place get so much effort into construction and then for no obvious reason is just like completely abandoned for a huge period of time. And then yeah, there is like I like some of this stuff, and I do think that there are relations to extraterrestrial life, but then I try and skirt around. There's a whole history of white people just looking at things that non-white people have built and being like, "There's no way people could have built that." Like we did that with the pyramids. And
Right.
the sad reality is you can build really crazy shit if you don't have like OSHA or care about human rights or,
Louis CK has a great bit about if you throw enough pain and human suffering at a problem, humans can achieve monumentous things.
exactly. But and that's one of the kind of crazy things about Machu Picchu is in a lot of ways you can tell it's that. It's the rocks of the buildings are so precisely cut by such master craftsmen that you can't slip a piece of paper between the rocks, and there's no cement, there's no mortar. It's just rock on rock.
And
And
aren't they also I think like the pyramids where like some of the rocks are like notched, where it's like cut and notched perfectly
oh
for
yeah,
rock
no,
over.
yeah. If you look up pictures of Machu Picchu, just like the walls and the architecture, it looks like a puzzle piece. It looks like
Yeah, so
they,
I saw a video of somebody, I think they were going to Machu Picchu, but they were in Cusco. And in Cusco, in like the town center, they have like a lot, there's like part of like this spot in the middle where it's like they have the old like rocks that they used to build it. And then like further up, they like added on an extra floor or something
right,
after Old Kingdom. And you can see the difference. It's like the old kingdom, they have all the notches and rocks so big it doesn't even make sense how they could like place them like that. And then the new kingdom was basically just like stacking bricks, basically regular masonry.
right. And there's something to be said because I think it's interesting. Like, obviously, there are things that we like have an ability to understand at least how they could. Like Machu Picchu, it's like the pyramids. It's a feat of engineering. I don't think it was done by aliens, but I think it was done with a crafts a skill that was lost or a technology or a trade that was lost. And it's just wild to be like there to even develop a trade that specifically, just like welding or any other skill, you have to do it for a very long period of time and a lot of generations
It
and
tells
teaching
us that they
people.
were like hunter-gatherers at that time, or supposedly at best in the Bronze Age or something.
Right. They have bronze tools. It's like 15th century. They're not hunter gatherers. They have villages and stuff, but it's like they're investing so much of their village, their calories, their time, their lives to these tasks clearly for a purpose. And then when we can't even understand that purpose, it's just wild to me. It's kind of like finding a I don't know, an old piece of technology and you like truly can't even discern what its purpose is. Um, that is kind of like the other thing that I briefly mentioned to you about the Antikythera and I
This
always fuck up
air
the
device.
fucking name. Yeah.
That's the one that
Um,
was found in the Mediterranean, right?
right. It was like in the ocean, in the Mediterranean. It was made out of I'm pretty sure it was bronze or copper. And yeah, they think it was like an astrological device or something to measure the stars or the
Right. No, I
planets.
saw I saw a whole video on it after you had told me about it. I was like, well, let me at least have something to draw from. And these guys were saying that it was supposedly this device that, yeah, like predicted like stars and like when the next like where you would what astrological sign you would be born on and stuff. And they think that it was like basically just like a random toy or device that some like rich guy invented for like other rich people who liked astrology and stuff to basically, but it was like way ahead of its time and it made
Right.
because it, like you said, it was like a mechanical computer.
It's just it's wild, but the really the shit that keeps me up at night, Bo, is the stuff where we will look at it with modern lens because the anti-Kirith mechanism, the stuff at Machu Picchu, like it is very incredible, but with precision equipment, modern techniques, modern machinery, we could duplicate it, and we could even duplicate it the way we think they made it, um, albeit under an extremely longer, more grueling process.
But it being
Um,
mechanical, it was basically just like a giant like watch type of thing, right?
right,
Without years and
right. Kind of somewhere between like a sundial and a clock, essentially.
like
Um, but
clock.
yeah, there is this thing. Have you ever heard of Puma Punku?
Yes, but remind me what it is.
So Puma Punku is another weird rock place. It's also in South America, but it's not the Incans. It was like a different civilization entirely. It was in Bolivia, and same thing. It's kind of like in this desert, shitty part of like a place that is inhospitable to human life. It's not like next to a river or a good place to live. And they are these rocks that are so intricately cut that like still to this day we don't know why they did it, how they did it. It's insane. There are interior cuts of rock, like
That
the way a Lego piece is cut, where it's because Legos we do it through injection molding. We have a mold, we pour molten plastic into it, and it comes out this specific shape that is 3D and fits together with other shapes, right?
right.
Puma Punku is that, but with stone. Like they literally have stone that is cut to fit together like Lego blocks. And
Oh,
the
I'm
really
pulling up images of it right now. Got it on.
yeah, no, it's insane. Um, some of the cuts are so sharp that you can cut your finger on them. Like the edges of the stone are still so sharp, despite it being out and exposed to the weather. Same thing as Machu Picchu. They fit together so precisely you can't measure the distance between the two rocks.
Dense stone.
It's dense ass stone. It almost looks like concrete, which is something I thought like when I first saw it. It looked to me like they were concrete blocks that just got poured, but they've disproven that, and it is natural stone. And then there is this one stone in particular that you can see that they were partially cutting and they fucked up, so they stopped. So there's a cut through one of the rocks that's midway, and it literally looks like they put this rock on a giant table bandsaw and were halfway through cutting a like 6 ton rock and then just decided to stop. So it's like they to this day can't explain how this, and this is way older than Machu Picchu. Um, I want to say it was like radio dated. I forget when, but yeah, dude, just insane rocks. The fact that you could in on an industrial scale, like that's the main thing is that this site looks like they were in the process of building something similar to a Machu Picchu and then just stopped for whatever reason. But the seeing someone stop in the middle of doing something like that, like we don't know how they were cutting that rock. We don't have a way of doing that without having a, you know, couple 100 pound diamond tipped giant saw blade. And then there's other weird shit, like they found
Stuff.
sewage pipes and stuff that again were supposedly built by um this very ancient people, but held liquids and were
You said they
transporting.
stopped. What did you mean that they stopped?
They were in the process of cutting a rock and they stopped halfway through. So like you can literally see the line in the rock where they stopped cutting, and it looks like it was done with a giant massive, either like a laser or some kind of seven foot
I
tall.
had a couple pulled up like that. That one, they had like their main archway one with like a guy in the middle, and then like that archway was like partially cut through on one side too.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the specific one that I'm talking about and send it to you. But no, yeah, dude, it's crazy. They yeah, it was supposedly from the 6th century. And yeah, dude, we just the fact that to this day we can't replicate some of these cuts is.
Speaking of giant rocks, you saw the new LiDAR of underneath the Great Pyramid?
Yeah, I did see that. I've seen a bunch of people already kind of concerned about the because I think it was the dude that published that was already hella discredited for something else that was crazy. Um, but I didn't do any research on that, to be honest. But do you see that rock I just sent you?
Yes, I'm putting it up to the camera right now.
No, yeah. So that rock is like 80% of the way cut through, and then it cracked in a way that made it unusable, so they just stopped. But it's fucking like
Cut.
how like I to I don't know. It leaves me speechless of how precise it is and the intricacy and the intention behind it. But then same thing, it was just like abandoned in next to a desert for a couple thousand years.
Yeah, I feel like that also about a lot of the sites that now with LiDAR we keep finding in the Amazon and stuff, and in that part of Mexico, they're like in the Yucatan, they're trying to build this like giant railway. And the city, I think it's City of Mexico, but the capital is like, we need this. It'll increase productivity and all this shit by so much. But everybody fighting against it isn't just the locals. It's people who are like archaeologists who are like, no, you guys have no idea. It's like, this is such dense jungle and it's dangerous and shit. We have no way of like clearing this shit or being able to like map it until now because of like recent lidar technology. They can like start mapping the areas and figure out like, all right, well, we can see that, yeah, there's 30 feet of dirt on top of it, but there's clearly some like giant stone mounds 100 feet underground. And they before the lidar started getting bigger, they like just started doing like the railway project, and they broke through, I think it was thousands of archaeological sites. And like as the company would build part of the railway or start digging trenches and stuff, archaeologists and stuff who knew it was happening, they weren't allowed there because the government wasn't trying to get an archaeological, like whatever it's called, where they say this is an archaeological dig site, so now nobody can touch this land for 50 years or whatever. I hear that's like a big problem. The guy in Alaska who has the Alaskan boneyard, a bunch of like mammoth bones and stuff, he said he's afraid to let any like archaeologists try to even go up there because he knows and he's heard from other people who have. He said as soon as they find human or anything they can associate to humans, they designate it like an archaeological dig site and it becomes protected, and then they have 20 years or something to where they don't have to let anybody near that. It doesn't matter if it's your land, you own the land, you work. The guy was a gold miner. He's like, I could have gold in there, but because there's human bones or whatever, I'm not
Right.
allowed to dig in my own dirt for 20 years or I get fined federally.
Right. No, yeah, and I do I get that is 100% like they do that. I even ran into that with my work, but yeah, the lidar stuff it does excite me. Like
Have you
I
done
just
Boneyard?
the like I just have hesitations because like bro, as growing up, in the fringe scientific community, um there did I ever tell you about the Inca stones and like my whole I was so hyped about those in,
I don't think
in
so.
my teenage years. It's one of the things where I was like, legit, this is proof that we have shit in our history that's wrong. It was in Peru. This I think it was like a Catholic priest or like a missionary. Um, said he was like trading with like local tribes of Inca and had these rocks that straight up had like people riding dinosaurs and shit and like accurate depictions of dinosaurs.
Right.
And no, yeah, they
But it's
eventually, I'm
also
pretty
like
sure.
the Hindu books, the Vedas and the Vimanas in the Vedas, they describe like these ancient beings that gave like most of the Hindu people their like knowledge and stuff. They describe them as like coming down in these floating crafts and shit that they called the Veds, the Vimanas, that's what they called them.
Yeah. No, yeah, the stones, the Inca stones, I know they were for the most part eventually found out to not be legitimate, but that was like my first real bummer of like, oh God, you have to be
Yeah.
very discerning with
But I
stuff.
mean, LiDAR
There,
just seemed it seemed reasonable to me, and I that's why I think it's all right because what are
right.
we doing? I mean, you fly a low flying plane and it's just blasting radar, and we get a little, map of the area based
Dude,
off
and
sonar.
there's super there's other stuff too. Like I was so pissed growing up Catholic and then learning that no, yeah, the Catholic Church has the Shroud of Turin and fully believes that it has the blood of Christ on it. And
There's a
then
lot of back and forth on that, but I heard like I read that the Shroud of Turin, when like it was discovered or whatever, was discovered by like this famous like pope or priest like brother who worked at another place, and like it was basically widely believed even back then that it could have been a con.
yeah, Joe, it's just they still to this day state that it is legitimate and that it has the blood of Christ on it, and then don't want to do any DNA testing on it
Right,
because
that's always been weird to me. The shroud has been a weird one that Christian,
right, dude.
but
Well, and a lot of most Catholic churches have a fragment of a saint or a bone or something like.
um,
Dude, we've been obsessed with.
but I do kind of believe that the Ark of the Covenant is in that church in Ethiopia. I think it could be that church, and there's like a one of the first Christian Orthodox churches ever in Ethiopia, and they have like this special building in their courtyard that's dedicated to like keeping the Ark. And they don't let anyone in there besides like a very old priest who gets like nominated to watch it, and then they have to live in the building with the ark, and usually they die within like 5 years because apparently it has like some radioactive material or radioactivity coming off of the shit. It's got like rad damage.
That's where I'm like, it's gonna be so sad to find out that it's just a spent fuel rod
You know what I'm
from
saying?
some.
It's just have a cool, it might just have a cool like fucking gold thing to hold it in, but really it's just like a piece of shitty uranium some guy carved 1,000 years ago.
No, or even just to like eject it out of the exhaust port of a passing by ship, and that's where
Oh,
all our
yes. Like
religions.
the new
have just
gaming
been
guys who had in
people hallucinating from exposure to fucking radioactive exhaust materials from a spaceship.
the tribal cargo cults, and they would make giant like wooden planes that looked like the planes that flew over because they thought it was like gods.
Oh yeah, dude. It's
But no, I wanted to know, have you heard of the Boneyard? The Boneyard is this place in Alaska owned by this guy named John Reeves. He's a gold miner, and he bought like this biggest gold mine in Alaska after a while, like 50 years ago, from some guy he knew,
all right.
and he was just trying to dig for gold. And while he's like, it's been like north of Fairbanks, so it's like you have like 10, 20 feet of dirt, pay dirt, and then it's all fucking permafrost. And he said it's majority of permafrost even to get the gold out. So they have these systems where they get these like giant power hose, like fire hose type of things, and they'll blast the mountain with hot water until the permafrost starts to melt. And he said while he was doing this, they found like now that he's tested most of his land, he says it's like a 1.5 mile circular area that they've found literally like hundreds of thousands of different bones of like all sorts of animals that weren't supposed to have ever lived in Alaska even during the last like 10,000 years. He's like sent samples and stuff to universities, and they're like, well, I mean, we have no record of those animals ever being in that area. And
All right.
his big speech is always like, well, if they were never here, nah, whatever the fuck, they sure as fuck died here. So I don't know, like, what you want me to say, because they found over like 10,000 mammoths, full mammoths in pieces, but they put them together. They found steppe bisons, dire wolves, saber tooths, whatever, lions, crazy shit, all sorts of animals. And he believes that it could be some sort of like, he says from how it looks and like how the bones look like they have like char on them, he's like, it appears that like something hit some, whether it was a rocket or a meteor, like hit and burned everything that was on this piece of land and like burnt it into the permafrost because it was already cold and icy, so it like cooled down enough to just like bury it under the silt basically.
That's wild.
You never heard? They've got a documentary. I think it's on Amazon. It's called like The Alaskan Boneyard, and he's got hella stuff on YouTube. You got to look him up. It's like it's super super cutting edge because they're just now like discovering it, and it's going to change a bunch of shit for sure. Because if they're not supposed, if these animals weren't supposed to have lived here, how did they die here?
Right. Um, do you- have you ever heard about the Lemuria?
Yes, I've seen a video on Lemuria, whatever it's called.
So that whole thing was because I forget what it was. There's like lemurs in Madagascar and they're not normally found in like any like that's literally where they got the name Lemuria because they had to like invent a landmass to make sense of how lemurs got to that island and they called it Lemuria.
I'm more convinced by Mauritania.
Dude, I'm just like the real when you were talking earlier about the religious sites, I was like, we should have had Jordan answer of what's under that black rock thing. I forget, I don't even remember what it's called, but that thing, it's like the like
The
Mecca
Kaaba,
of the
yeah,
Islamic
the
faith.
Kaaba,
Right.
the Kaaba. Don't Jews have one of those too? But it's like white.
I thought it was the same one, but this is where I'm like,
It might be. I'm not either. So, oh,
this
but
is
yeah,
when I'm like, is it bad that I know more about fake shit than
we've got
real
we've got
religions?
6 minutes left on this session before we got to take a 10-minute break. And run ads so we can pay for this or not pay for it. But since I mentioned before you got on the call, you were the first person I ever met who gave me any believable, credible to me at least, stories about aliens. And, you introduced me to the grays and the tall whites.
Right.
So I wanted to get, your opinion on aliens and disclosure and where it's at right now. The whistleblowers, David Grush, the drones, people think
Yeah.
aliens. What's your take?
Um, dude, I like David Icke and
He's not
God, who was the other dude? Oh, I'm so pissed. I'm forgetting his name. Uh,
John
it was one of the other
Jacques
whistleblowers.
Vallée. I like Jacques Vallée.
Um, no, he was the dude that said he worked not at Area 51, but near Area 51.
Not Bob,
And
not Bob Lazar.
Bob Lazar, dude. Thank you.
He worked at Los Alamos.
Right, dude, the whole thing where Bob Lazar, like, I get people have their issues with him too. People have their issues with all these whistleblowers, right? But the thing that I find super credible about Bob Lazar and his story in particular is like years when he first originally started telling his story, I forget if it was like the late 80s or early 90s. He very specifically said that his way of getting in and out of work was using this weird device that he describes as like he placed his hand on it. There was something that read his fingertips, like they had little bars. Like he perfectly describes this device, and then later in FOIA, Freedom of Information requests through CIA and shit, they
Right.
found, yeah, they like in the early 90s, the CIA had like very rudimentary full palm finger scanning things, and they showed what they looked like, and they are exactly as Bob Lazar described. So like
A lot of what he claimed had like years after would be proven and come out slowly.
exactly.
People wouldn't try to go back and give him credit, but things he said ended up coming true time after time. Element 115, like, which was when he talked about it, wasn't even like publicly discovered or spoken of at all. Now
Right.
has been discovered, even if it is just in like the particle colliders where they can make it for a few seconds. It's been discovered. A lot of stuff he described as like happening, it has either been proven or other people who are like, whistleblowers or former top of like certain government programs have corroborated his like findings. And
Right.
I don't know, it seems very likely. He's and this would like what Joe Rogan always says about him. He's kept the exact same story for like 70 years.
Right.
And
No, yeah, that's that to me. And then, yeah, he like I think his story is really similar in enough of the other whistleblowers that especially have come out more recently that I think for sure there are gravity engines. There are ways of manipulating um, space time and gravity in fields that are controlled, just like electromagnetic fields. And yeah,
one
they,
we discovered was he was talking about a material that like would be like a flat piece of metal, and then you like you introduce like electric current or something to it, and then it like takes shape. Now
right,
that I forget what that's called, but we've discovered things like that.
right. And like, there is something to be said about like people are like, oh, the the things that are slowly being disclosed to us are kind of confirming this stuff, but still leave this big empty question of is it like we've had confirmation that it's non-Earth materials, and That's obviously vague intentionally, but I think that it's like insane to think that there isn't a strong possibility that given this is like not just been a rumor, it's been like a part of our like human psychology. Like the one of my favorite alien movies is Close Encounters of the Third Kind because the way it's shot and how they introduce the idea of like humans have had experiences with aliens, and the reason that we don't have more, like hard-nosed, credible people or better photographs, or more evidence, yeah, more evidence, more concrete evidence is you're essentially like you're human beings are used to being predators, and